Liberation, greetings to all and sundry, my people of Ambazonia, my people of southern Cameroons. My name is Komari John Akuro, and the date today, of course, is uh, Thursday, October 19, 2023. I know it's been, about a couple of weeks since I was last here for us to have an exchange, and I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you who have reached out to me to find out, if I were all right, if everything is okay. Some of you even went as far as, wanting to know, bro, I hope you haven't left the struggle yet, or what's going on. And I really want to thank you for, for your show of compassion, for your show of love again. And I want to reiterate one thing. I'll be the last person ever to want to leave this liberation movement because I believe in it. It is my life. This liberation movement is my life. That is the reason I find myself in the diaspora, this liberation movement. And so, therefore, my commitment to it is unshaken. In fact, shake, shake, no day. Just like they say, shake, shake, no day. So I'm here all the way to the end, all the way until we get to freedom land. So I just want to reassure each and every one of us. Sometimes we get so overwhelmed with a good lot of things, and we happen not to be, on the spot to get these things. I could even be able to do, daily podcasts, but there are several other aspects of our liberation movement that will also require my presence. So for that reason, there will be moments that you really don't get me come on. It's not because I am tired, or not because I'm leaving the struggle, not because I'm feeling discouraged. It's just because I could be overwhelmed with other activities. So, my people, I'm glad to be here this day, and there are some key questions that some of you actually sent to me regarding the just ended conference in Toronto, Canada, and I'm here to look at some very key things. It's going to be a real, very brief show, about a 30 minutes broadcast, because I'll find time to come back more elaborately on some of the issues that a lot of us still want to understand. But that said, I won't dive into the beef of our matter without, as usual, making a stopover at our noisy enemies or at our noisy neighbors. You recall that the difference between us and them lies in our determination, in our ability to have principles, and in our ability to be focused, and especially in our resolve, usually, to finish whatever we begin. You know, for 61 years and counting, we found ourselves embroiled in a system which is going backwards and not forwards, where all other countries in the world have been making strides towards development. We stayed in a system that had been moving rather backwards. I'll be back here, in a couple of days, to demonstrate to us exactly how this system has been moving backwards. Rather backwards. Not that it has been stagnating. If we're stagnating, it would even be better. How it has been moving rather backwards, while in other spheres we have been seeing progress. This is because the people resigned to an unfortunate fate. This is because the people determined not to rise up, to take their responsibility, to demand accountability. The other day, I broadcast here Barrister Keremuna, who has written to CONAC, that's the Anti-Corruption Commission in the Republic du Cameroon, who has even tried to go to the courts, who has gone to everywhere to talk about the Glencoe scandal and the fact that several roads in the country could have been constructed with the money that some hoodlums caused to be disappeared from the government treasury by taking paltry bribe of about 15 billion CFA from Glencoe. But he tried left, right, and everything, and I think reality dawned on Barrister Keremuna that we have been right all the time. That's why he now decided to go or to come to the court of public opinion by using social media to make his case. But just how effective is that going to be? How would that help among a populace that have decided to look the other way, while the country is being totally pilfered, while the public fund is being looted, while a tiny tribe and a tiny elite continue to sink the country and take it even far beyond the pre-colonial period? This is something that we must continue to bear in mind fundamentally. When you are unevenly yoked, listen to my words carefully. When you are unevenly yoked and you stay with the people who have no idea what really should be happening around them, who have no idea how a society is governed, who have no idea what accountability, what holding a system, holding a government, holding authorities to account means, you end up looking like them. That is why some of our folks, some Southern Cameroonians, have ended up looking exactly like citizens of La République du Cameroon. They can never determine to do something and go all the way. No. Evidence, look here. A few days back, you see this multitude of trade unions in the education domain in La République du Cameroon decided that they were calling a 1 week strike, just 1 week sit down strike, to force the government to yield to their demands, to force the government to pay them huge sums of money, calculated at about 181 billion CFA francs, owed in the government treasuries for years, because a lot of them teachers have worked, some for 10 years, some for 15 years, without receiving pay. There are others who have worked for 20 years without having increments. There are others who were appointed and have been in those positions for 18 years without receiving duty post allowances. A lot of them have worked for 25, 30 years, have never been advanced. Have never been able to move from one position to the other. While children who come yesterday pick appointments here and there and become their bosses. And the reason is simple, because when a people at the end of the day fail to recognize that governance is meant to be in their interest, is meant to be for them, that those holding government positions like the president, the ministers and others are their servants, are only there because they decide that they should be there and they could get them out of there at any time. When they don't recognize the power that they have, what they end up being, they end up generally in the soup. And that is where they are. Because just even this 1 week sit down strike, they couldn't observe for 2 days. It wasn't even observed on day one, and it flopped. And when it flops, your guess is as good as mine what the authorities think. Because they will infiltrate the ranks, bribe a few, promise juicy positions to a few hungry ones, distribute bread and sardine, and share a few notes. And then the other people start saying, oh, I don't want to be a victim. And while they are doing that, they punish some very severely so that others get afraid. And when the people fall to that, you get what you get in La République du Cameroon. I have a friend. He traveled out to Accra, Ghana, just a few days ago. When this friend, and this is the first time that this friend was actually visiting another African country. So when this friend got to Lomé, because they have to pass through Lomé, because they passed first through Abuja, and at the Abuja airport, it was like, oh my goodness, is this still in Africa? Then he had learned that Togo is the poorest country in the world. Listen, that Togo is about the poorest. I think too often they will say the poorest because they used to equate that with Niger, poorest country in the world. And so when the aircraft landed at the Nyasimbe Eyadema International Airport in Lomé, my friend sent me a short video of himself in tears. I was like, what's going on? I hope you've not run into a snack. I hope you don't have an accident. He said, he called and he said, my brother, those tears, I'm weeping for my country. And I started laughing. You know why? Because this friend has been a believer in a one Cameroon. This friend had continued to think like some of the misguided elite that we were a bunch of, noisemakers, trouble lookers, just disturbing the whole place, whereas they believe that Paul Biya had been doing his best because someone told them before that Cameroonians, you are made. Cameroonians, you are blessed. Oh, yes, he did. This is him. This one said so. He said,
Cameroonians, we are lucky. We are made because we have Paul Biya, the helm of the statecraft. This president is our greatest marksman. He is our principal goal scorer. He has always taken us out of very difficult situations. First, because of his immense wisdom. Second, because of his aura and international clout. Those who meet President Paul Biya for the first time are out and bow in reverence, in respect for his profound knowledge. President.
So, you said this is it. So I said this wahala is because they have been fed with this. He spent time. This is a guy who, because he holds a little position in the administration, spent time. You watch CRTV, you read Cameroon Tribune. You got so brainwashed to the point where he actually had believed a good lot of the times that Yaoundé, the capital Yaoundé, was among the 5 most beautiful on the African continent. But when he stopped at the Nyasimbe Eyadema International Airport, he told me the Douala Airport and the Yaoundé Simalan Airport, if you have to compare them to the airport in one of the poorest countries in the world, the Nyasimbe Eyadema International Airport, then you will come to the sincere agreement that those are just airstrips and not airports. And that even calling them airstrips will be an overstatement. He wept. He wept again on another aspect. He saw a huge number of aircrafts on the ground. And as he stayed there, every 15 to 20 minutes, an aircraft was leaving or another one was landing. And the man said, at the Douala International Airport or the Yaoundé Nsimalek International Airport, the departure or that's a takeoff or landing of an aircraft is an event. People come and gather and clap. It's a spectacle because it doesn't happen that frequently. Sometimes you can even spend a whole day at the Yaoundé Nsimalek International Airport and 3 aircrafts land. And the interval between one and the other is wide. The man said, I've never seen this number of aircrafts, packed at the same time at the airport, at any of the airports in the Republic. And I said, my brother, you are headed to Accra. When you get to Accra, I'm sure you will deny your first name. I'm sure any name that identifies you with that country called Cameroon, you want to wipe it out. And exactly that is what it became. Folks, I am saying this like to make us understand that this liberation movement is so fundamental, so important to all of us that we really need at all costs to put in our all to be part of this movement, to push this movement to the finish line, because we have to cut ourselves off from a bad and wicked system that is only meant to bring suffering, to bring sorrow, to bring tears, and to bring misery to his people. When you stay in such an evil place too long, you begin to be defined by that place. You may end up looking like them. That is why we have to leave. So I was talking, therefore, about that teacher movement that failed. Look at this picture. This is Teachers' Day celebration. This was taken on October 5, and this was in Bafoussam. This is the International Day of the Teachers. But look at the placard that a teacher is carrying while marching on the International Day of the Teacher, honoring the same human being that is making life impossible for them, honoring the same human being that has reduced the teaching corps to a corps of beggars, while diverting all the resources to the police, to the gendarmerie, and to the military, because he needs them to maintain his evil system in place. So when you find people this brainwashed, what do you expect of them? You expect that society will ever change? No, it can't. It can't. That is why we need to depart from these people the fastest possible. So that in our dreams, when we stay and we dream about the fact that we had once been with them, it should become like it was a nightmare. Folks, if you have really never settled down to understand why you are in this liberation movement, things like this should educate you. It is a shame. I mean, a huge shame. So Paul Biya, if it's magistrates matching, Paul Biya is the number one magistrate. Footballers matching, Paul Biya is the number one footballer. Basketballers, Paul Biya is the number one basketballer. Even in the teaching corps, Paul Biya is the number one teacher. Oh yes, that's what they call a personality cult. And those who orchestrate this are sons of people who are in high places, daughters of people who are in high places, because they are expecting a reward after this. They are expecting to take over from where their parents ended. And that is why Frank Biya will boldly, very boldly, be doing the things that he is doing around and be very convinced that he has to be the next president of Cameroon, despite the most horrible record of governance known in the world being that of his father. Oh, yes, because they are dealing with a docile, passive, should I say, unconscionable set of people who have no idea what power they have, who have no idea what they deserve, who constantly settle for less than they deserve and end up with what they even settled for. Take a look at this other one. I often pick Bones Wunga Christian of the Guardian Post, but once in a while he does some interesting reporting. Look at this. He says, parents to children, relatives recruitment thriving at CRTV, part 1. Of course, I know it's normal for him to say part 1 because, I mean, the list is super long, extremely long. And this is what has been happening. This is why I've said over and over in this liberation movement that our quest for freedom is not only to free ourselves from the oppressive regime of La République du Cameroon, is to free ourselves from a horrible mentality, the mentality that you have to be somebody's son, you have to be somebody's daughter, you have to be somebody's relative before you can have a place under the sun. And this is the truth. Because if, as Christian is saying here, says part 1, I guess it can even go right up to part 20. Because the time when people actually got jobs in that that triangle called Cameroon because they deserved it had long passed. Today, it is either you have a brother, a father, a sister, or you have money or a political godfather. Else, it's finished for you. That is why the few elite that have managed to position themselves where they can guarantee the future of their children in this corrupt setup using the same corrupt approach will tell you it is a very bad thing for us to be seeking to liberate Ambazonia. They will tell you it is a very bad thing for us to continue to be seeking to, get La République du Cameroon out of our land. They're really simple. The fear of the unknown. They are not certain that in a new dispensation where meritocracy will thrive over mediocrity, they don't know whether in a system where you will only be hired on basis of what you bring on board as knowledge and not on basis of who you know or on basis of whose son or daughter or political godson or goddaughter you are, they wonder if they will be able to thrive in such a setup. That is why they are ready to do everything to stop our freedom move. That is why they are the ones who cause a certain community calling itself a community of Blacklegs to thrive. That is why they'll even push young men with no sense of direction to come sit on national television and say, we the Blackleg communities, we are working very hard against the wishes and aspirations of over 8 million people. That is why. And to this elite, I always say one thing: there is always a time of reckoning. It doesn't lack. There is always a time of reckoning. I have said over and over and over that while you continue to construct, to build a community of blacklegs, to fight against the wishes and aspirations of over 8 million people who are determined to get their freedom, be certain of one thing: that you will lose. Because many before you did that and they lost. Often, I've taken the example of East Timor, I've taken the example of Eritrea, and I've taken the example of South Sudan. But most especially the example of East Timor, because of what the Indonesian government did to those who championed the so-called community of blacklegs against the East Timorian aspirations for freedom and independence. They gathered them at the dawn of independence. They all wanted to take the nationality of Indonesia, to run away from their acts. But the government of Indonesia said, no, you will go face your acts. You will face you will take responsibility for your actions. And we all know what happened to them. But now I want to depart even from East Timor to come just next door. That there is always a time of reckoning. No evil system has reigned forever. It will crash someday. And when it crashes, there will be consequences. Take a look at this. This is Sylvia Bongo. To your left, the only woman seated there in the hall with a red band by her waist, or with a pink band. That is Sylvia Bongo, seated there in the courtroom, in confrontation with someone she herself hired, maltreated, and fired. This is Sylvia Bongo, the all-powerful First Lady of Gabon, who held the power of life and death over the Gabonese people. That is Sylvia Bongo. That is Sylvia Bongo seated there like one of the red check of the earth. And after sitting there, being judged by the same people she used to walk over, going to lie down, so she walked over, and thinking she was already a demigod, that she was celestial, that she was no longer of this world. That is Sylvia Bongo. And that's not all. At the end of it all, this is how it anchored. That is the same Sylvia Bongo now, covering her face in pink, being marched to jail, being marched into prison in Libreville, Gabon. The same place. Where, like Chantal Biya, she knew that she held the power of life and death over every single person in the country. That when she moved, people were bowing down, sleeping on the streets, and swearing in her name. That is Sylvia Bongo. That is how she ended. Between Gabon and Cameroon, the gap, the distance is less than, should I say, it's even less than 10 minutes if you find yourself in KOC, in the south. That is where Chantal Biya spends most of her life. In Vomeka, with Paul Biya. From Vomeka to Gabon is not above 2 hours. Yeah, to KOC. And then which can cross into KOM in Gabon. It's not up to 2 hours. That is where this sin happened. That is where it is happening. That Sylvia Bongo took advantage of a man who had a stroke, who was no longer in control of his full faculties, was almost senile, to ruin an entire country. Like Paul Biya, Alim Bongo thought that he too was already the god, a demigod. Of course, we saw his videos circulating where he was being received into the Freemasons' cult, where he thought that just by being initiated the Freemasons' cult meant he had the hearts and minds, thoughts and everything of all the people of Gabon in his palms. But this is Ali Bongo, post-presidency. And he's just having this pass because of his illness. Because they just look at that this man's already vegetable. What use will it be casting him in jail? This is Ali Bongo. He's not even thinking again about Sylvia. Because Sylvia herself did not even accept while in court That Bongo was part of her name. But why she was calling herself Sylvia Bongo. Once she found herself in trouble, she had to begin being truthful. That she was never officially married to Ali Bongo. She didn't have anything that caused her to take the name Bongo. And this is Bongo himself enjoying himself. He's even forgotten completely that there's somebody like Sylvia and even his son, Nureddin Bongo, that are existing. So just like Frank Bia, Nureddin is already in jail. Frank Bia is not yet in jail. He thinks that he will even become president. That's exactly how Nureddin Bongo thought. But my people of Ambazonia, you see what life, how life is. From grace to grass, suddenly Ali Bongo can sit again among commoners. Folks, this is not the way we intend to run our country, Ambazonia. That is why we need to flee from a system that only replicates buffoons. That's why we need to flee from a system that can never, never, at any point in time, bring hope and solace to its people. That's why we need to flee. So, this presentation today, like I said, was meant for me to take us to just 2 or 3 aspects of the resolutions I have had in Canada. But I needed to brush through this because we should always find the opportunity to remind ourselves why we are in this movement. To remind ourselves why we need to get La République du Cameroun by all means possible out of our land. Because the worst is yet to come. Continue to be unevenly yoked with La République du Cameroun only portends evil days. So while in Canada, one of the friends of Ambazonia, a key one for that matter, Mr. Tibonagi, said, I was honored to speak at Toronto, Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia conference. My main points, 3 obstacles to progress. Thus, he was pointing the 3 obstacles to the progress of our liberation movement. He mentioned La République du Cameroun. Of course, how does La République du Cameroun come in here as an obstacle? They are already on our land. Number 2, because of their ability to thrive in something called divide and rule. Because they make sure constantly that we keep hitting our heads. They even hire some who pass for our activists, that they should spend their time not attacking La République du Cameroun, not seeing the evil things that La République du Cameroun is doing in our land. They should spend their time attacking this platform, attacking anyone that is credible in this movement, but at the same time pretending to be part of this liberation movement. That's why you find some that have specialized in everyday, oh, Akuro is from Momo, he is from Bengu. Why is the road to Bengu still locked? Akuro is from Momo. Why is this still happening in Momo? Why is he not attacking people within? That is not my vocation. My vocation here is to motivate, is to mobilize, and especially is to make sure are sensitized and share educational information to our people to understand the need for us to continue to fight to get La République du Cameroun out of our land. Those who have decided to play the double game, pretending to be our activists while collecting money from La République du Cameroun to deepen the divide, it is to those people that Honorable Thibon Nagy was talking here. And the next obstacle, he said, was a belief that UN Resolution 1608 will be the solution. And the third one, disunity of the community. Of course, disunity of the community falls straight in line with what I was talking about regarding the role of La République du Cameroun. And so my joy is that at the end of the day, the resolutions we arrived at in Toronto, in Canada, do reflect a clear desire to address these 3 issues he raised and beyond. Because if you look at resolution number 1, which talks about, which is on collaboration within the liberation war or liberation struggle, it says, we acknowledge both the call and desire from all Southern Cameroonians to evolve the optimal structure for the struggle. So we resolve to establish a Southern Cameroon's People's Secretariat to work together to coordinate all the activities pertaining to the prosecution of the Southern Cameroon's liberation struggle, that the establishment of the SCPS will be done in collaboration with on-the-ground stakeholders in the southern Cameroons. It has to be all-inclusive, bringing in every sensitivity in our liberation movement to ensure that we have better coordination. That the Secretariat's activities would include coordination, collaboration, humanitarian, scenario planning, diplomacy, education, human rights and judiciary, inclusive negotiations, communications, and financing the struggle. So you see that the role of the Secretariat is to enable us to collaborate, to enable the existing liberation movements, that is, the existing groups, movements, and organizations, to use this secretariat as a platform to cooperate around the areas that I just mentioned. And the secretariat's role will include the definition and implementation of the vision, the mission of the day-to-day management of the struggle, and that there will be 3 Southern Cameroon People's Secretariat spokespersons covering Africa, the Americas, and Europe, Asia, or called Eurasia. Now, this is something that I want to respond to quickly, because some people read this and they had the feeling that a new organization or a new movement or new group has been created. No, nothing new has been created. What has been created is just a platform within which all the existing groups, movements, and organizations will cooperate, will find common ground. And the areas where we should find common ground are clearly outlined. No group, movement, or organization will be swallowed. No group is being dissolved. But all the groups, movements, and organizations will be called upon to cooperate in setting up this secretariat, which will become like our clearinghouse, where we sit together, agree on common strategy, agree on exactly what orientation we need to make, federate our efforts in diplomatic outreach, federate our efforts in ensuring humanitarian and relief assistance to our people who are in prison, our prisoners of war, because they have continued to remain fidel to our cause for freedom, to federate efforts to assist our refugees in ground 1, in ground 2, in ground 3, and elsewhere, who are also facing very dire situations or dire conditions because of their commitment to be part of this liberation movement. So this is really important for us to know. It is not a new organization, not a new structure, just an organ. Would I call an organ? No, just a secretariat, just a platform, a working surface where we should all assemble all the time to agree on how to move our liberation movement forward. And again, like I said, I'm going to find time to come here and be a bit more elaborate and talking to some of the key actors that were present in Toronto, so understand the spirit and the letter of these resolutions. I know there are some people who are on social media trying to give a wrong meaning, a wrong face to exactly what is in these resolutions. Trust me, all what we need to do is commit ourselves to implementing the things we have agreed to implement, so that we should move faster towards our goal, which is freedom. And I'll go on to resolution number 7, which talks of inclusive negotiations, understanding that our common goal and approaches should be synchronized for the purpose of effectively engaging in any future negotiations to ensure justice for our people. We resolve 1, to establish an inclusive negotiation architecture using a third-party nation mediator model. Because, we have generally come to agreement that 7 years down the line, we are yet to secure international partners that should speak for us and on our behalf in places where it matters, that should take our matter up and make sure it comes at the top of the international agenda at international institutions. And so therefore, the need to make sure we attain that objective had never been more pressing than it is the case now. To explore and enhance avenues to build a team for internal and external negotiations. You ask me what internal negotiations. Internal negotiation simply means having the opportunity constantly to talk among ourselves and to sync our differences and to make sure that we narrow the areas where we disagree and find common ground on how to continue to proceed with meeting other external stakeholders. To ensure the Secretariat builds and or has access to negotiating capacity and expert consultancy to support negotiations, and recognizing the importance of collective engagement in matters of negotiations founded on trust. Of course, if we don't trust each other, we won't go anywhere. The objective of La République du Cameroon is to make sure we continue to be suspicious of each other every day. That's why they do everything to make sure they get people who stay among us and claim they're activists, but whose only role is struggling to discredit other internal actors, at least to the interest of La République du Cameroon or in the interest of La République du Cameroon. This is an area we are so hell bent on tackling. Create space to build from our different strategies to engage in external negotiations as one entity, representing the people of the Southern Cameroons and their ultimate interest. Of course, just picking a leaf from what happened in Canada during the pre-talks that did not materialize to anything at the end of the day, but which gave us the opportunity to test and to show the international community that when the occasion arises, we rise as one man. We are able to work together as one people with one destiny and with one clear objective. So this is going to be an opportunity to further build on that gain and make sure we get it to work for us, to work in our interest. And then I had also a pension on resolution number 8 on communication, which says establish an inclusive communications framework and platforms with a clear and broad editorial policy to accurately inform, educate, and entertain our people. From inception, way back in 2017, by the time we created the SCBC, the intention was to attain this goal. But over time, we have faced divisions and replicated until you have about 6, 7, 8 different television channels, each perhaps representing the interests of the various groups, movements, and organizations. But the time has come to refederate these efforts and have a common communication strategy geared at making sure we always make our voice better heard and make our position clearer and in unison before our international partners. And this is very, very fundamental. And the last aspect I will go on is resolution number 9, which is on what has usually been considered the elephant in the house. So on financing and resource mobilization. The SCPS shall establish a centralized financial structure to mobilize funds to fund the struggle. I talked about this before. I brought up this idea here. We talked about it with DAC, and a full structure has already been put in place. And it is my wish and my hope that the SCPS will simply build on the work we have really done thus far in putting in place that platform, and then we simply reinforce the transparency mechanism and ensure that the funds that are raised are addressing the needs, the concerns of the entire liberation movement, not the needs of a group or only the groups, movements, and organizations that were in Canada, Toronto. You might not have been in Canada. You might not have been part of the discussions out there. But the quest to have a single, that is a unique financing structure where we federate all the funds to make sure we are contributing at the maximum. The intention is to address the needs of the entire struggle, not the needs of one group, movement, organization, or only of those that were in Toronto, Canada, or that are members of the Southern Cameroon Stakeholders Platform. So this is very fundamental and important that you are aware of this. So this is to say, my people, whatever the circumstances, all what we need to do, settle down, make sure we follow up very carefully the implementation framework for this resolutions. There were 9, but I have on 4. Not that the other ones are least important. We'll have an opportunity to talk about them, but I just wanted us to note that 1, no new structure has been created. 2, the need to federate our efforts in the area of diplomatic outreach has been taken care of, and that's absolutely important. Three, that on communication, we are trying to make sure we kill the cacophony that often exists when we find ourselves in a crisis in the area of communication, that it should be a thing of the past. And then number four, that we will fundraise together in one account and be able to make sure this money helps us to change the dynamics of our liberation movement on the ground. So, folks, this is a substance of what I wanted to share with us this day, the Thursday, October 19, 2023. And I'm delighted that you found time to be with me on this live show. So, as much as possible, share the link of this communication, share as much as you can, and always note that the Republic of Cameroon is not relenting in its fight against this platform. They continue to see how they do three things to stop us from sharing beautiful information that will help advance the cause of our liberation movement. Number one, raise internal activists to continue to attack my person, attack the messenger. By day and by night, that is their focus. And so the simple reason is they believe that if they attack the messenger, they will definitely end up by killing the message. I found the opportunity to talk to someone. He had been a friend before we got into, before the escalation of our liberation struggle in 2016, late 2016 and early 2017. He works very closely with and for Atanga Ponji. And I know, and sometimes he owns up. And I told him, these folks to whom you pour money to keep trying to tarnish back every day, how does it help you? Because I told him and I drove him down the time when he was going through pains and suffering and sometimes benefiting because of the legendary, I often don't like to even use the word legendary, because of the penchant of the people of the Southern Cameroons for solidarity. And I said, you forget those days quickly. But all the same, continue to dish out the money to them. I said those activists sometimes are the ones that come themselves and propose plans of action on how they can do to water down some of these platforms. And I said, listen, folks, I know my people. My people know me. Some have reached out to me sometimes and say, oh, because you decided to cooperate with this or that person, you have become like one of them. And I say this, listen, when I was in a meeting, an executive meeting of the consortium last night, our folks reiterated one thing. We are ready to talk even with the devil, to let that devil know our point, know where we stand, and know that we will never waver. That is why, despite some people being stigmatized left and right, I still find the opportunity to sit with them, to talk with them, to understand where they are coming from, and to let them know that the path on which they find themselves is the wrong one. We will continue to be here. Despite all of those senseless attacks, we will continue to be here. We will continue to mobilize our people towards the ultimate goal, that is freedom. And thank you so much for spending some of your time with me. And again, as always, I will say to God and to God alone be all the glory. See you.